All right, so picture this. You're scrolling through all the news on your phone, and I bet none of it would even exist like us, as we are now 70,000 years ago. Talk about a mind-blowing thought.
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective.
And that's what this deep dive is all about. Like, how did Homo sapiens go from just another species on Earth to inventing smartphones and worrying about, well, everything we do? We're diving into Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind.
I love that book.
And you've got the excerpt, so get them ready. We're going to pick out all those, what did he just say? Moments that Harari's so well known for. And get ready to have your mind blown, because here's the thing. 70,000 years ago, we weren't really, well, we weren't at the top. More like another animal just trying not to be someone's lunch.
All right. Yeah, for millions of years, humans, so Homo sapiens, weren't anything special in the grand scheme of things. But then, roughly 70,000 years ago, something changed. Harari calls it the cognitive revolution. The cognitive revolution.
Yeah.
So does that mean our brains just, got way bigger all of a sudden? Well, not exactly. It's not just about our brains getting bigger. It's about how our minds began to work that changed everything.
How our minds work.
Yeah. We developed this amazing ability to believe in things that we couldn't actually physically see or touch. Things like gods or nations, even money and corporations.
You're saying those are all in our heads?
Well, in a way, yes. Harari calls them imagined realities.
Imagined realities. So we're not just talking about survival instincts here. This is something bigger.
It's the ability to believe in these shared concepts that allowed us to cooperate in larger numbers and organize ourselves in completely new ways.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So nations, legal systems, even the entire global financial system. None of that exists outside of our heads.
It's like we invented our own reality.
It's like we're all living in a giant simulation, but instead of code, it's built on stories and beliefs.
Exactly. Think about something like money. A dollar bill is just a piece of paper, but it has value because we all agree that it does.
It's true. I never really thought of it like that before.
It's a shared fiction we all buy into.
Wow. But it's not just money, right? This imagined reality thing, it affected us in other ways too. Didn't Harari say something about our biology?
He argues that cooking, something we began doing around that time, may have directly led to the development of larger brains over time.
Hold on, cooking equals bigger brains. How does that even work?
Well, think about it. Cooked food is much easier to digest, which means that our bodies could use less energy on digestion and more energy on a larger, more complex brain.
So you're telling me our love for a good barbecue is linked to our ability to think, to create, to do all the things that make us human?
It highlights how something so simple can have massive effects throughout history.
That's amazing. And speaking of ripple effects, let's talk about language.
Language?
How complex could early human language have been? I mean, we're talking grunts and signals, right?
It was more than just that. Harari says that gossip played a vital role in early human societies.
Gossip, like who is the best hunter? Or something.
More like who's trustworthy, who to avoid, that kind of thing. Oh, okay.
That sharing of information, being able to talk about others, even when they're not around, that was crucial for cooperation.
It's like the original social network.
Exactly. It was a game changer.
Wow, I never thought about it like that before. But it makes sense.
And this ability to share information, it actually played a role in something much bigger. The extinction of megafauna.
You're talking about those giant creatures that used to roam the earth, right? What does that have to do with gossip?
Well, imagine Australia, 70,000 years ago. Giant kangaroos, wombats the size of cars, even marsupial lions.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
These were the megafauna, but then sapiens showed up and things changed.
They died out because of us.
It's complicated, but the evidence is compelling. You see, these megafaunas were used to a world without us, without these efficient predators who could talk and plan together.
Makes you wonder what those creatures would think of us now.
It's a question worth considering.
So we went from trying to survive alongside these giant creatures to, well, I guess we sort of wiped them out. Talk about a change of events. It's a pretty stark contrast.
But this is where things get really interesting, right? Humans go from hunter-gatherers to, settling down, farming, and forming those bigger communities. Was it really for the better?
That's the question Harari really makes you think about. I mean, we see the agricultural revolution as this natural progression, we got smarter and figured things out.
Or are you saying it wasn't all good? I mean,
Yeah.
Farming is how we have, everything. Grocery stores, civilization.
Think of it this way. You're a hunter-gatherer, you spend a few hours a day getting food, you have a varied diet, plenty of free time, right?
Okay, yeah. I can see where you're going with this.
Now imagine being an early farmer, working from sunrise to sunset, often tough conditions, worried about crops failing. Not exactly the same, huh?
Definitely not. But people still kept doing it. They kept farming, building villages. Then those villages became towns, then cities. Why give that up?
It all comes back to those imagined realities again.
You lost me. What does farming have to do with imagined realities?
Well, around the time we started farming, we also started developing more complex social structures, like hierarchies.
You mean like having a king or a ruler?
Exactly. And Harari says these hierarchies, they're not just a natural part of being human.
There's not.
They're built on shared myths, things we just collectively decide to believe in.
So a king didn't have power just because he was, well, the king.
It's way more complicated than that. Take the Code of Hammurabi from ancient Babylon and the American Declaration of Independence, right?
Okay, two very different documents.
One says your rights depend on where you stand in the hierarchy, like are you a king, a noble, commoner, a slave?
And the other says everyone is created equal.
Right. But they're both ultimately imagined realities, stories we tell about how society works.
It really makes you question everything, huh?
It does, and it's not just social structures. Look at money, for example. It doesn't inherently have value, it's just how we trade.
Because we all decided it would be that way.
We all agreed on it, we made it real. And then there's empires, and we see them negatively, and for good reason.
Wait, empires, those huge, often kind of brutal power grabs, how could those be like a good thing?
It's not about good or bad, it's about understanding them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Empires didn't just conquer, they spread ideas, technologies, connected places through trade.
Okay, so like the Silk Road, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It connected East and West, led to cultural exchange, sharing knowledge. Before that, it was like different worlds.
So empires were like this messy, often violent, but ultimately powerful force, pushing everyone closer.
In a way, yes. And that brings us to another powerful force in human history, religion.
Religion. I mean, I get that it's important, but shaping the world, is it really that powerful?
Think about what religions are, massive systems of shared beliefs.
Shared beliefs. There's that phrase again.
It's a common thread, and often these beliefs are about a higher power, which can really connect people.
Even if they're from totally different places, speak different languages.
It's like social glue on a massive scale. Think of how religion has been used to legitimize rulers, shape our morals, even inspire huge acts of, well, everything, good and bad.
So religion, just like money, empires, even cooking, it all comes back to that ability to believe in imagined realities.
And it's what makes us human.
It's driven us from those early campfires to the complex world we live in today, which, when you really think about it, is incredible and kind of scary.
For sure. And that brings us to another pivotal moment, one that completely changed how we view knowledge itself. The scientific revolution.
A scientific revolution.
Yeah.
It's like we're talking about dusty textbooks, right?
So
But it was more like a total upgrade for how humans think, wasn't it?
Exactly. Before that, it was like knowledge was fixed, passed down, never changing.
People just took what they were told as the truth.
But then the scientific revolution happened. And suddenly it's like, hold on, what if we don't know everything? What if admitting we're kind of clueless is the key to figuring out the universe?
Instead of looking for answers from the past, they started looking at the world around them in a new way.
That's the key. Don't just accept the truth you're given. Test it, experiment, see if it holds up.
And that led to some pretty huge discoveries.
Oh, absolutely. And whole new ways of thinking, entire fields of study were born, like statistics, for instance. The idea that you could use math to make sense of really complex things.
Yeah. Harari uses the example of life insurance. Back then, it was like trying to predict the future, putting numbers on something as big as, well, death.
It's a great example. Before, it was all about fate, destiny. But the scientific revolution says maybe we can understand those forces, maybe even control them a little.
Which, as we've seen throughout history, can be both amazing and a little terrifying, right? Humans shaping the world and not always getting it right.
It's the double-edged sword of progress, isn't it? Every new discovery comes with a whole new set of challenges.
So where do we go from here? I mean, knowing all this, what happens next for Sapiens? Any guesses?
Harari doesn't give us a roadmap, thankfully, but he does bring up some possibilities that are pretty mind-blowing, to say the least.
Like the Gilgamesh Project. Immortality. Are you really talking about humans living forever?
It's a question that's been around, well, forever. But now, with what we know, with the technology we're developing, it almost feels within reach, doesn't it?
It really makes you think. If we could live forever, should we?
These are the questions we need to be asking. And it's not just about living longer. What about artificial intelligence? Genes? We're talking about changing what it even means to be human.
It's almost too much to think about. Sometimes I wish we could just go back to being hunter-gatherers. No offense to our hunter-gatherer ancestors.
No offense taken,
Yeah.
but we can't go back. The choices we make now, the stories we tell about who we want to be, that's what shapes the future of our species.
So what should we do? Knowing all this history, all this potential, what's the takeaway?
I think the first step is simple. Just be aware. Understand that long story of our past, the good and the bad, the choices and the challenges.
It's not just about learning from history, but shaping the future.
Exactly. Because the story of Sapiens, it's still being written, and we are the authors.
That is a powerful thought. It's not just about learning from the past, but shaping the future. And maybe, just maybe, using our big brains, our ability to believe, to cooperate, to actually build a world where humans don't just survive, but where we thrive. That's something we're thinking about. And on that note, we're wrapping up this deep dive into Sapiens. Thanks for joining us. Catch you next time for another mind-bending look at the world and our place in it.